Hello, I'm Aika Ray, and today we have Angkas in this episode of By the Numbers. Hello, everyone. So I'm Aika Ray, and today we have a new CEO of Angkas, George Reca. Hello, George.
How are you? How's everything?
How are you? So,
Thanks for having me in the
let's.
show.
Yeah, actually, you're the new CEO. How is it going so far?
I don't know. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
That's a good
More
thing.
work, I guess. Huh? No, I mean, kidding aside, very exciting times. I think the economy is finally going back on. Hopefully, cross fingers and Omicron, but it seems like traffic is back, and we are really seeing the numbers grow by the week, and hopefully, this is continues already to really a good rebuilding for 2022.
So you mentioned Omicron, no? So I'm just wondering, how is Angkas doing, especially right now during the pandemic?
Well, it hasn't been good, unfortunately, for I think a little close to about 2 years. Oh, by the way, by December, this is our fifth year in operations. So it's going to be our fifth year this December 16th. So I'm very excited about that. But over the last, I guess, year and a half, a bit more, it's been very bad. We were able to get back our operations last December 2022 for a good, I would say, 9 months of no activity because of the pandemic. And since then, we've been struggling, no? But I think over the last, I think 3 or 4 months, because of the vaccination efforts, especially in Metro Manila, you see a bit more loosening of restrictions as well as demand. I wouldn't say pent up demand, but at least a bit more mobility demand as we go into the last quarter. And as if you remember, we did a little bit of a lockdown right
Mm-hmm.
before, during this Q3
Mm-hmm.
to a little end of Q3 so that we could have a better Q4. And I think it paid off. And because we were able to vaccinate more people, there's commerce now that's happening. So you see our numbers grow quite nicely. We're still a little bit away from 2019 or pre-pandemic levels, but I think there's nowhere to go but up. So things are looking very, very good.
Okay. So how about vaccination for the riders?
So 100% of our active bikers are complete. They're fully vaccinated. We've been vaccinating them, back when A4 started. So some of them will be needing their boosters. So we're just waiting for the A4 just so that we can start the booster shots for the rest of them. As we onboard more bikers, they also get their necessary vaccinations. But I think not just our bikers, no, but the transportation sector has really been quite diligent in ensuring that
Mm-hmm.
many of their employees or many of their fleet and their personnel and partners in community are fully vaccinated. So that's, I think, helped a lot in providing mobility options to at least people in Metro Manila.
Okay, that's great. That's great to hear that demand is actually going back up, no, except that, still kind of far from 2019 levels. So let's just move on to another topic. So since you're the new CEO, about your new role, I'm just wondering, how was it decided? When was it effective? Because we just got the announcement this Saturday, November 27.
Yeah, I think officially I took over as CEO back in, if I'm not mistaken, September, I think. September,
It's been a
October.
while.
Yeah, September, October. I mean, there was a transition period, right? We didn't really,
Mm-hmm.
we were really focused on, the company, and, how do we um, kind of review what the community was doing, where the whole trend was going. Is transportation going to bounce back? Are we going to look at the other side of the community, which is really motorcycles that do deliveries? So a lot of discussions around that time. So we actually forgot to really
To
go to the
announce.
meeting and announce. But I think it was affected sometime back. But Angeline is still a big part of the company. She advises in a lot of the matters that, I mean, she did start this company. She's very, very well versed. She knows this business inside out. And I think for me, my role is really to ensure that this industry is established properly. We have the right regulations in place. As chief transport advocate, it's really to advocate the what we're doing. But I think we're past that now, so
Hmm.
people get it.
Yeah.
We are part of the vernacular. We are part of the the daily activities and daily necessities of a lot of the different people that are working, and not just working people that are home, that we deliver to. So I think right now is really steering the company to ensure that we have the right regulation, and also protect both stakeholders, the commuters or the customers, as well as the bikers themselves. So I think that's really where I will exhaust a lot of my efforts, and pour a lot of my resources into for the next for the next step of Angkas.
Yeah, and it was said you have taken full ownership of Angkas.
Yes, yes. I mean, yeah. So basically, I have Angkas I've taken 100% ownership of the company. That was always the case from the very beginning. That's always how we intended the company to be. A Filipino company, and that also allows us to, I guess, engage in a lot of other activities as well. No?
Okay, so this does not have anything to do with what the TWG was saying before.
I think the so before, and this was taken up a lot in the Senate, no, and I think this was
Hmm.
resolved already.
Yeah.
Of course, before we were just an app, no, regulations
Hmm.
was still, what would I say,
For tech
non-existent
companies,
back
it's
then, no.
different. Yeah.
And then back when regulations were starting to take form, and we were influencing that as well in terms of how the pilot was conducted. We were preparing for when we become legalized, or there is a law in place that will put us squarely under the category of common carrier, or public
Right.
transportation. When that happens, there is a domestic ownership requirement, which we've already fulfilled. No, so there was
Hmm.
no need for me to actually take over the company, the ownership completely. But I think now, since we are going to the next step, we just wanted to really just expand my role in the company, and also I think where we want to take the company moving forward.
Great. So, what are your plans or any vision that you have, now that you're leading Angkas?
I mean, I think there's not really a lot of change in reference to being the best two-wheel transport alternative in the country. We do believe this is not just about traffic. This is about
Hmm.
mobility options. When you go down to the provinces, actually, it's not about traffic anymore. This is the only alternative.
Right.
There's no alternative. There's the main form of transportation, and a lot of that is still there's a lot of it's still gray, major gray area in those areas, right? The pilot is only in Metro Manila and Metro Cebu. We want to be able to prepare the different cities when the law gets passed. What will the structure be? How will it now expand to other cities, urban and rural? And then also, when we get to those other cities, what is the education process? How do we train those bikers? So there's a lot of, like, I think, advocacy involved there, but also prepping the country to make sure that we are able to scale this industry, and really help a lot of Filipinos become entrepreneurs in their own right. So there's Angie.
Hi. Hi, Angeline. How are you?
So basically, there's a lot of so that we can prep those that need training, those that need to have the
Hmm.
safety guidelines, the safety measures in place. What is the structure? I think a lot of that, is where we're looking at. How do we prime the country to be able to really establish motorcycles to be a primary, mover of the economy in those areas?
Yeah. So, Actually, the pilot study has been going on for quite some time. It was briefly interrupted by the pandemic. It was supposed to end, diba? But then they resumed it because of the pandemic na, and there's a need talaga for capacity. I'm just wondering, since you mentioned that you're looking at how it can be scaled, so what have you seen so far, given that you've been collating data for the longest time?
I think training is very important. I mean, we're working very closely with Tesla, working very closely with LTO. How do we incorporate free and effective training to people that want to ride motorcycles? And then there is a sort of almost automatic, I guess you allude to the fact that when you do buy a motorcycle, that you at some point in time will use this for business, whether you do a sideline as a part
Mm-hmm.
worker for deliveries or for a ride hailing platform, for e-commerce platform or whatnot. There are a lot of new economy jobs based on two wheels. So I think training is going to be very, very important, because when this becomes, when this becomes commonplace in the streets, which it already is now, but at a scale, likes we've never seen before, we need to make sure that everybody knows their role, and everybody has a clear understanding on what the safety environment is for motorcycles alongside the other vehicles. So I think training is going to be we're going to play a very, very important role to scale this industry.
Yeah. And Angkas is promising almost 100%, diba? Na safety on the road. Of course, you have external factors, but then almost,
99.997%,
yeah.
0.003% accidents. I think, we've even gotten, sometimes we were actually even higher than that, 99.78. Yeah. But we're very concentrated, right? And of course, that's just one company. But if you're looking at it from an industry perspective, there will be a lot of little players, a lot of other large players, a lot of regional players as well. So how do we standardize these metrics? And I think that's what I really want to do, is really be that example, and be that model for the other players in the industry to emulate, so that we can all share in this common resource, or this common demand, and really be able to make it flourish, so that it we not only help people with jobs, with good decent livelihood, but also help consumers as well, right? So we get to deliver stuff to your home, we get to transport you
Mm-hmm.
anytime you want. So hopefully we get to really, this on the backs of this, we get a very established industry with good best practices, very clear safety guidelines, smooth relationship with the government in terms of the regulatory framework, and also execution, right? Because a lot of this is going to be working with local government units, working with the local LTFRB, as well as the Land Transportation Office there, and make sure that those trainings are properly implemented.
Okay. So, it's been a while, no? As I mentioned earlier, it's been a while since the pilot run for the TWG has been going on in the bid to legalize motorcycle taxi. So, where do you think that is headed right now? How is it going? Should we wait for the next Congress before a law is finally passed?
I don't want to wait. As much as possible, I hope that it can get passed as early as possible. If we wait for a new Congress, then we know that it will take a little bit longer, right? So it's not a full reset, because we've already actually have a substitute bill. So these are the bills that have been collated across multiple Congresses over the last decade, and put together into a. I think, in my opinion, that the substitute bill that Chairman Edgar Mary Sarmiento, chairman of Transportation Committee on Transportation, Lower House, really did a fantastic job, no? And the technical working group chairman also did a very fantastic job in really steering the different provisions, and also talking to the different stakeholders, and making sure that we have a good bill that's reflective of what's happening, in the real world, not outside, really on the road. So we have that. So I think that's a head start, but we hope to pass it this year, or early next year, before the elections come in. So my fingers are still crossed. I'm still very, very hopeful. But if we're not able to do that, then we're not starting from scratch. And I think we can really push the passage of the law quite efficiently. Whoever is there, whichever Congress is, either this or the next one.
Okay. So do you think there's a chance since I mean it's still a pandemic, right? And the Department of Transportation has been clear that at least the NTF also has been clear that Angkas and other motorcycle taxis should be on the road until capacity is reached. But then of course, syempre, di ba, parang yung question naman talaga dyan is, will they actually remove Angkas and other motorcycle taxis when we don't know yet, di ba? But is there been any indication of anything along those lines na they will stop motorcycle taxis habang capacity is returning to regular levels?
I hope not. I think there's a role to play for small agile vehicles, especially in urban settings. Again, we relieve the road of congestion. Other people that would likely take four wheels, which is already there, would rather choose to take an Angkas because it's a faster, more efficient way of going around the city. We are a feeder system to the mass transport hubs, to bus stations, to the MRT stations, the train stations, the LRTs. So those are some of the things that we have been working on in terms of traffic management, together with the Department
Mhm.
of Transportation and also the technical working group. So I think there's a role to play for us, regardless whether there is no capacity, small capacity, or the capacity is up and running. Hi, Nathan. Sorry. Bye bye. Pandemic. Right. So I think there's a role to play on all of these things, no. And again, even down to the provincial areas, I think the role becomes more obvious because we are really the only type of vehicle that can ply some of those roads, no. And having that layer of Angkas, which provides them the professional training and the professionalism, the insurance, the uniform, the customer support, I think is a there's a benefit to that, for a lot of the people concerned.
Okay. So I have a next question, no? Kasi at least in other modes of transportation, the barrier between the passenger and the driver has been removed na. But then when we asked the Department of Transportation if this rule will actually be implemented in with motorcycle taxis, they said that the decision lies with the National Task Force kasi sila yung nag-approve nun basically. So I guess my question is tatanggalin na ba or was there any discussions on this part to remove that safety barrier between the rider and the passenger?
I mean, nothing specific, right? I mean, I think the whole general discussion was how do we lift restrictions? How do we move from the pandemic situation to a post-pandemic economy? And I think those are some of the things that are being discussed, no? But there's nothing definite yet in terms of how that's going to move forward. But I think as we get more comfortable, and as I mean, we know a lot about the virus now than we did back then. I
Mm-hmm.
think we can arm ourselves with a lot of this knowledge to make the right policy changes, so that people will still remain safe, but there will be much more, I guess, much more mobility, for everyone.
Okay. So other matters. I have a question actually that I've been meaning to ask you.
Sure.
In September, the TWG actually suspended the partnership between Move It and Grab. So I just want to know Angkas' reaction about this. Like, Move It is actually saying that other players somehow had a hand in asking the TWG to suspend their partnership, which essentially allows Move It drivers to be on the Grab platform.
I think there was a lot of discussions on this in the technical working group, not just one, but several discussions. In fact, I think from a purely a marketing channel perspective, I was very supportive of the partnership. But I think the issue was, with reference to potentially circumventing the technical working group
Mm-hmm.
pilot study, right? So basically, in the pilot study, there were three players that were granted, which was
Mm-hmm.
Angkas, Jordan, Move It. And will this partnership, which was initially a partnership, effectively become the entry of a fourth player. And it wasn't really I wasn't really against it, so to speak, but rather if there was an entry of the fourth player, then let the fourth player do a proper entry, right? So if
Mm-hmm.
so that everyone goes to the proper vetting process, right? Because every single player went to the proper vetting process. They know their roles. We've been doing this for a while. And in fact, we are in the tail end of the pilot, in the sense that we have enough
Yeah.
data that we shared with two technical working groups. There are two. One is the DOTR, and the other one is the
Mm-hmm.
Congress technical working group, to discuss the passage of the law and put the provisions in the law. So there's been a lot of discussions around that as already. So I think one purpose of the pilot, and the purpose of having a fourth player. Number two, if if it's going to be a fourth player to enter the market, then let it go through the proper process. So for us, it's really just a matter of one, transparency. Number two, everybody goes through the proper process, and everybody knows the roles that everyone plays and what they contribute to the overall study. So I think there was enough or ample discussions around this partnership over not just one but several technical working groups. And in the end, the technical working group decided on really reviewing the details of this partnership, to ensure that it doesn't go against the spirit of the pilot.
Okay. So next question is, I'm actually interested because, say for example, Grab has moved on to become a super app. Does Angkas have any plans of becoming a super app? Maybe.
I think we're in the impression, Aika, that you do one thing and one thing very very well. I think there's a lot of issues in our transportation system that need to be resolved. There is a lot of
Mm-hmm.
help and support that we can provide at this point. Hopefully later on, it becomes very very efficient, that it actually makes us obsolete, and that will be both there will be a bittersweet day for me. I'd be happy because we're progressing, but of course, we'll have to disrupt some other thing. Hopefully later on, no. But I think for me, being in the transportation sector is something that's very very important, and I hope to really push that advocacy forward.
Okay, that's great. Well, we don't have a lot of time, and actually, I was checking some of the comments here. There's one comment from Ian Char. He's saying that it's about time. Maybe it's about time for you to take the top post. And then there's another one from
Thank
Sharon
you, thank
Grace
you.
Torre. There's another one from Sharon Grace Torre Francisco. Basically saying, baka pwede po tanggalin na ang barrier sa angkas. Di makita ang harapan kung ano ang nangyayari. So basically, this was answered na before by George, saying it really depends, on what's going to happen. But as long as safety is what's more important for Angkas. So here's my last question, before I let you go. Basically, I'm just interested. What can you say to the riders and the riding public about you taking the helm?
Well, I hope you guys give me a chance. We've been together for quite a while. My responsibility is it's just expanded to go beyond just focusing on the regulatory, but rather, also try to steer the company to really establish the industry. So, I hope you continue to give me your trust, not just for the Angkas bikers, our customers, our community, and other stakeholders, but also the rest of the industry. And I promise not to fail you guys.
Okay. Thank you so much, George, for being here.
Thank you so much, Aika. Thanks for having me. Congratulations on the show.
Yes. And congratulations to you for being the new CEO. George is a familiar face. We've always seen him in Angkas press conferences. He's the face of Angkas, actually, if you think about it. So, again, thank you so much. I am Aika Ray, and this is the episode of By the Numbers on Angkas.